Welcome back, everybody, once again. It is another beautiful Friday, Trotec Laser Live. Hope everyone is doing well, and welcome to the stream. Today we have a really cool subject planned for you guys, but before we get into any of it, I want to introduce these two gentlemen here alongside me. If you've been watching any of our recent streams, you are certainly familiar with them. To my camera, south. I wasn't sure. James, how are you, sir? Welcome.
Best day ever. Thanks.
Best day ever. Very happy to have you. And then just to my this
other side, yeah.
Other one.
It's backward.
Every week. People are gonna start thinking I'm doing it on purpose. Tim, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. It's a nice Friday outside. Sunny again in Toronto.
Here too, actually. We're getting spoiled.
Yeah, Vancouver as well. The first sunny day in the entire spring.
Really?
Wow.
It seems like it anyway.
That's not unusual for Vancouver, though, I guess.
No, lately we've had beautiful weather in the spring, but this spring is the 15th worst on record since they started taking collection.
I always hear those stats about like this is the 12th worst this or that, and I wonder who, A, which branch of the government collects that information, and B,
and whose job is that
wanting to be,
and where do I apply?
Exactly, yeah. How much rain fell today? I'll write it down. Get out the big book.
Yep.
Is James going to play a tune today, being in his music room? I mean, that depends how nice you ask me.
I was going to sing. I was going to play. Oh, Ruby.
Nice.
Don't take your love to town. But it's not. I mean, the song's called Ruby, but it's just not fitting the subject matter. Maybe if I change the words next one, I'll make a song
like Weird Al style, like
Weird Al style.
Yeah. I want to. It's great of you to join us, Doug. We're really happy to have you. I want to try and incorporate James' music as often into the future of these streams as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Tim, I've been meaning to ask you. The last stream you did with me too, I think it was behind you. That project that's there on the 2000.
Yeah.
What is that? That looks.
Yeah, I was curious as well.
Oh my god! So this is a sugar skull from our Mexico office.
Is it the sugar skull?
Yeah, it is.
That's
I'm not
nice
sure if I can
sample.
actually get it moved up here.
Don't do anything that's gonna get you.
Yeah.
But
it just falls all.
Yeah,
that's what I'm afraid of. Yeah, like a giant jigsaw puzzle. The 2,000-piece jigsaw puzzle where the table breaks one piece left.
Oh god. Oh, let's hope not. I like this job, so let's hope not.
Exactly. Yeah.
Welcome everyone here in the chat. I have to keep putting myself on mute because my keyboard is really loud when I type.
Oh wow.
Yes, it is really wild. If you guys haven't seen it, we have this great video that showed off some of the. We had an incredibly talented team at Trotec Mexico who put together some incredible designs, including the sugar skull, and that is one of them there. Yes, okay. Jeff knows what's up. That's
Ruby.
Very glad that you could all be here. I'm going to give people just a few minutes to join in before we get started, but welcome. I have to say the other thing, the other benefit of the Weird Al parody version is that there's no chance of us getting like DMCA'd or, you know what I mean, like copyright strike, because I know that your voice is going to be so unpitched for the actual song that it's going to put us in a position where we're in copyrightable.
That's exactly what's going to happen. I'm going to be so good at singing it that they'll think it's actually me, or actually George Jones or whoever sings that, Kenny Rogers. I like the George Jones version better, but
you pretend you don't know, but I know that you know.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've moved into a new office. I'm in our front room now. I have the nice natural sunlight that bleaches me out from one side. I'm very happy with it. I gotta say too, the samples I have behind me, they might be switching as we go. I'm hoping that as we do more sort of Rage of Challenges with Tim and some things like this, we can put in some of the designs and some of the work that Tim does on the Rage of Challenges, and I can start populating it in behind me. Yeah.
I'll have to mail them over.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Or maybe you should just, come out to the Montreal office.
Come out to Montreal. I mean, I would not mind.
I mean, you've got a French, like, Antin is the most French-sounding last name. I suppose anything sounds French if I pronounce it like that. So.
I believe it's somewhat Polish, though, if I'm not completely wrong.
Really?
Yeah, and it does sound French, though. I actually never took in how French it sounds.
It's a little bit French, but I see anything with the, like, in suffix as a French-sounding thing. But what I always meant to ask you, James, actually, what background your last name is.
It's a German, southern Germany, Bavarian.
Very cool.
Mein Deutsche Spreche ist nicht sehr gut, danke.
Yeah. Scheiße.
Hey, whoa.
The Iron Man, where is he? Over here. If you guys are ever interested in getting, this might be one of our coolest designs, and I would argue one of the best ways to show off what Lamicoids can do. If you're ever looking for a really cool design that you can put in your front room, we will happily send you guys this for free.
Mhm.
The files,
Not the actual part, but we'll give you.
no, exactly. Yeah, we don't have the suit, you know, as far as the media and the public is concerned. But it is like very, very cool. We're going to get started here in just a second, I think, but I see a great question here from Jeff really quick that I will throw to Tim and James if you guys don't mind. Has anyone else had DXF scaling problems when importing into Ruby? I don't know if maybe you can give us a better or even a little bit more information, Jeff, but sort of, are you talking about, you know, is the file adhering in a different ratio when you import it in? It's just like a drag and drop import, I assume, or
DXF has scaling in the if I don't know if Jeff, if you're using AutoCAD or if you're using some FreeCAD or something like that, but CAD programs have scaling in the actual software itself, and so when you're exporting, it will actually give you scaling options. So, you know, 1:1, blah blah blah, all the way up to 10,000 to 1. And then also, if you're exporting in millimeters and importing in inches, that's going to give you scaling issues as well. So Jeff's a real smart cookie. I know him well, and he probably has already figured all those things out. Other than that, I haven't seen DXF scaling issues. Most of the stuff I bring in is from AutoCAD, you know, the brown paper AutoCAD, and it comes in great. So check those things out if that doesn't work. But scaling in the export of your actual CAD program, and make sure that you're millimeters to millimeters or inches to inches.
Yeah.
I mean, Mr. Hacker is certainly a very smart guy. I'll give it up to anybody who uses AutoCAD or any 3D software. Learning a little bit of Blender in my free time, and it is like daunting. So today we are going to be doing a pretty cool stream. I think we're going to be talking again about Ruby. It's something that we're going to be pushing quite a bit in these streams, you know, in the next little bit, because obviously Ruby is going to be a bigger and bigger part of Trotec. I don't think it's any secret.
It's the part of Trotec. Like, it's literally like, if you get on Ruby, it's happening.
It's the best.
Yeah, I mean, I've used Ruby on really junky old systems and new systems, and it seems to just be working. So, you know, it's not hard to install. It's easy to get in, and you don't have to give up job control if you love job control.
That's right.
And you think that Ruby is too much for you. It's not. It's easier than job control as far as I'm concerned. It's more intuitive. There are some things job control can do for now that Ruby can't, but the list is very, very short, and it's usually the very specialized people who say this. If you're a regular engraver, it's going to make your life easier and better. And we aim to prove that.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. I mean, we covered this off on our stream, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago with Tim, where, because Tim has moved the company now for just coming up to 3 months, so he sort of had the chance to learn Ruby simultaneously alongside job control. And, you know, I'd be curious, like, from your point of view, Tim, sort of where the two fall in terms of, you know, ease of use. Like, if you were a new customer, as you sort of were 3 months ago coming in, I mean, you used the Trotec Laser at school, but, you know, having been passingly familiar with job control and coming into Ruby, like, how do you feel in terms of, you know, taking on Ruby as like a learning challenge and you know, for somebody who might be familiar with job control first and foremost?
Oh, right. So I'd say job control is great. It is generally, if you're just looking to engrave and cut, you're doing your basic needs, it's also really great. And there are the advanced stuff that job control does that Ruby doesn't, but Ruby is slowly catching up to it as well. I'd say generally job control, from my point of view at least, has more failing points than Ruby does. What I mean by that is, if something's not connecting, something's not running in job control, there's a lot more of the back end that needs to be done to fix it. So job control runs on a printer driver system. So that means your computer will see the laser machine as a printer. So that requires a printer driver to run job control. Whereas Ruby, it more or less sees it as a direct connection between the machine. You don't need to press Control P to send anything into Ruby. You can import a file directly within Ruby and have it function through there. So job control is great, but in terms of a new user, Ruby's a bit simpler to explain to everybody. It looks less daunting, it's less intimidating. And once you do get a hang of it, it is a very manageable workflow, because the way we have planned out Ruby, from all the 4 tabs at the top of the screen, we go from managing to designing to preparing, then producing. We guide you through the steps to do this effectively.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, yeah, man.
Well said.
Okay, I was gonna say, gee, if you could write that down on a brochure-sized piece of paper, I'd really appreciate it.
Definitely.
So for today, I think what we really wanted to show you, I mean, James in particular has some really, really cool tips. I think Tim has a really cool feature in Ruby he wants to show off to you guys, but we wanted to be sure that it's very clear that, you know, Ruby is getting better and better with each passing day. And we would urge you, if there's anything in Ruby that you need and you don't see, it might sound counterintuitive, but the best thing you can do is start using Ruby, because the team in Austria is really, really ears open to try and hear what you guys need. If there's a feature that you need, again, I beat this, you know, point to death probably, but the best thing you can do is to submit. There's a little button right inside Ruby to submit, you know, a suggestion or an improvement, an update that you'd like to see, and they really are listening to that stuff. And I assure you, if you are using Ruby and seeing something you wish was there, there's definitely other people around the world who are thinking the same thing. At the same time, you know, we want to show you that even in its stage that it is right now, Ruby is not only stable and getting easier to work with, as James said, but also it's a powerful little piece of software that it is ready to sort of take you to industrial level, full, you know, optimized levels of production. It's not sort of job control light. If anything, I think in a lot of ways it improves on what job control does. And
yeah, no, it's far beyond job control.
This is it. I think like Tim and James are both absolutely correct in as much as there are certain really specific things that job control does that Ruby doesn't do yet, that are certainly oncoming. I mean, anything you see in job control, rest assured that's already a checkbox. The Ruby needs to be able to do this. But you know, adding on to that, I think Ruby has the ability to grow quite a bit more than job control does kind of going forward. And job control also Ruby won't have some of the same pitfalls as job control has, as Tim points out. You won't see, because Ruby is network based, you won't see it having trouble every time there's a Windows update, for example, whereas printer driver based stuff, you know, it tends to be a little bit more, you know, flexible that way. But I thought maybe I would throw it over to James, because I think the trick that you want to show here, James, I think is really, really cool, and also delivers on a promise that we've kind of wanted to see from Ruby for a little while, that I think might be pretty exciting.
Yeah. So let me share my screen here. I'll show you a few things.
Also, I'm sorry, Tim, we should have let you know about the blazer dress code ahead of time. That was my mistake.
Yeah,
really I apologize. That's my fault.
Yeah, over here in sweatshirts, oversized tees.
I know. I
mean, still looking great, let's be honest, but you know.
I was wearing my pajamas and thought, if I put a blazer on,
no one will know.
I'll look much better. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen now. Everyone sees that, or what?
Yep.
There we go. Okay, so we got just an instance of Ruby up here. This is my local machine. This is the laptop I'm on right now. You'll see, because it says localhost here in the address bar. Well, if I want to also, so I'm running the virtual machine right now, the S4 5070, which is a Speedy 400. That's the machine that would be connected to this laptop had I have a laser connected to it. But the great thing is I can still use Ruby, and I can still design with Ruby even though I don't have my laser connected. I can still create a job even though I don't have my laser connected. I can still name this job blah blah blah. I can still name it. I can still save it. It's all ready to go. You'll see I hit Control S there to save, and it saved it right here in jobs, blah blah blah. Okay, don't have to be connected to the laser for this. Now, let's say I also want to send jobs to my van computer. Now, in a practical situation, you're going to have your workstation in the center of your your room, and to the right and to the left of it, you're going to have your 2-speedy 400s. Now, these could be run on Ruby 400s that you don't need a computer to connect with it. You just need a remote station. Or it could be a local machine that's connected to this computer and another machine that's connected to that other computer, but you have it connected with just a headless Windows machine, just some headless Windows machine plugged into the back and ready to accept an internet connection. Or it could just be a laptop connected. So you have two computers. Either way, as long as there's a computer connected to both machines, we can actually run Ruby on two. We can run two machines with one Ruby, or with one computer. And so what we're going to do is we have our local machine here, and we're going to find out the IP address of that other computer. Now, some people don't know what I'm talking about, but each computer has an address. So the long and the short of it is we go into our Windows button and we hit CMD for a command prompt, and we're going to type IP config. Okay, IP config is open. You're going to see a IPv4 address, and that's going to give you the address of that computer. So I'd be on my remote computer right now looking up what the address is, and I happen to know that my VAN's computer is 192.168.1.84 because it's connected to my network here. So I write that down, that it's 84. I go into that address, http://192.168.1.84, and then in Ruby here it says if you want to add a user, you go into user management and you go into remote access. And so we know that we have to type in this address. So this is on your remote computer, you'd be doing this. You have to type in this address. So write this down or copy it, because we're going to need to download what's called a certificate so that it will allow us to use it securely. So I'm just gonna copy this by hitting the copy button. I'm gonna paste it into here, but I'm gonna change to that 84 because that's the number that my computer in the van is. So it's 192.168.1.84 with the rest of that stuff there. I hit enter and it actually downloads a certificate. We double click that and just say open, install certificate, next, finish, okay. And now we are ready to connect to that machine. So now we come down here and we say to access Ruby for another computer, please enter this URL in. So I'm going to grab this URL, I'm going to copy that, I'm going to paste it in here, and I'm going to change that 78, which is my local machine, 84, which is my van computer. Now, you may not want to use this HTTPS, or you may be able to. It depends on your network. I'll show you what happens when we use HTTPS, which means secure. It's going to give you this one. Your connection is not private. It looks all dangerous and bad. Not really, because we are on I'm on a protected network because I have router and firewalls and all this stuff. But if we hit advanced and say proceed to this address, unsafe, it says unsafe because it will just drop that S. We click on there, and now look at that. I have Ruby up on my van computer, and I have Ruby here on my local machine. Now let's say we want to get a Ruby job that we've done on our van computer. Let's go this old Yoda thing we did a long time ago. So we like this, and we want this. We want to print it on this laser here. We actually can go in and we can download it. This little button here allows you to download that job onto your local hard drive. You see it there? It downloads here. We just show that in folder, and there it is there, this TLJ file. we just drag that into our local Ruby here, and look at that. We have that file on the other Ruby. I can start printing it on both computers now if I want to. So you see, I can even do them all at the same time. I'll do that, and we'll open Special Square here. So I can be operating Special Square here, and I can be operating this one. I can send them. I can queue this one to this laser, and I can queue this one to this laser, and we can. But the thing is, on the remote computer, I can't hit print. It will not let you print because you have no idea if there's somebody got their hands in that computer. Like if you're in a different room, like I would have to walk downstairs, through my hallway, through the kitchen, down another hallway, out the front door, onto the driveway, into my van, in order to hit play on that. So, you know, if you're doing this, this is more for just preparing jobs and putting them into the queue. And you'll see I've got 3 jobs in the queue of my laser here that I could go down and engrave now. So you can use this same stuff if you want to hook up your computer into your design design room, so that your designers can send jobs down onto to the computer for processing. You can use the same stuff for so much other stuff. You know, for when you're at home, if you have some kind of a secure tunnel to your network at work, you could use it that way too. But you can also, I mean, and if I had 6 machines, I could hook up, you know, I could hook up 6 Rubies on my one screen. It depends on how small you want to use Ruby. But if you have 2 screens, you could have literally 2 Rubies running at your central processing station, both Rubies processing work, while the designers upstairs are sending jobs to each of the computers, or to one Ruby, and you can share them using these download buttons. You can share them to whichever laser that you want, because usually the laser operator is the person who's going to be you know, saying which job gets done on what machine. The designers don't care, they just want it done. So if you're in a larger building and you want the designers to be sending jobs down to designs or jobs. Now this is another thing that some people don't realize about Ruby, especially new people, is that there are 2 tabs, one for designs and one for jobs. And designs are single elements, jobs are assemblies of different designs. So if you notice your second tab here, this is a design. So I'm designing one thing, and I can name this design, and I can call it design 1, let's call it, and I can hit Control S to save that, and then you'll see it here. The design is saved here. I can even delete that now. I can go and I can say, no, I don't want to save that. It's already saved. I can go, there's 2 tabs here too, designs and jobs. So you see I'm on jobs. You don't see my design 1 because it never was a job. We go into designs. Aha, there's my design. I can drag it out, and now it's there. So you see now I have 2 things on my design screen. I save this as job 1, hit Control S to save, and now you'll see it is saved under jobs. You see the tab down here, jobs, and look at there, job 1, and you can just delete all this stuff here. And I'm literally working on my van computer, so you see how fast everything is still on the network. I'm drawing just as though I was drawing on my regular screen. So there's a couple of little tips for this. Do you guys have any questions, or are there any questions in the queue about this?
There's a few. I think that's really cool though. I have a quick question just to kick things off, if that's okay. So
sure.
Once you've downloaded like the SSL certificate, like the safety certificate, basically to say like, hey, this is a computer that I trust, and this is a, you know, it's like, even when you had the hey, this is not secure, are you sure you want to proceed to this particular page? I mean, it's right, because it's you going through your own network, like you don't have to be, you know, nervous about that. But right, once you've downloaded that certificate once, you don't have to download it again.
No,
right? Like
you
this
only
is a
download it
setup.
once.
Yeah. So although like you could, rewatch this, like say, do the IP config in the command line, get your IP, download the certificate once, and then after that, you're just entering the URL, and you can run it anytime. So you don't think you have to kind of go through that whole
You need the
process every
certificate
time.
for each machine, though. So if you have
Yes.
3 machines, you need to download the certificate from each machine, and it's really simple to do because you just click on the hamburger up here, go down to user management and remote access, and it will tell you if you're doing this on your remote system. You just take your iPhone or other brand of phone and take a picture of this, and then you can write these numbers down. So you'll just basically type this into your remote computer, this from your local to your remote. You'll just type that in, and it will just work. You'll download the certificate. I've tried it on 100 computers, and it always works. So
and as you say, if you want to open as many Chrome windows as you want, you can open one Chrome window for each one of your machines or your local PCs that are connected to your machines. You can have all your machines and all your queues sort of running in one place. I was thinking about too, where you might have one computer or one particular Ruby instance that has, it's the one you always give to clients. So perhaps you have one sort of Ruby instance that's connected to your 400, but you have, a 400, a 360, and a Galvo, let's say over here. This would let you sort of keep all of the client work in one particular queue, and then, redistribute it as is necessary. But you know what I mean? You don't have to worry about necessarily having, did they accidentally send that to the Galvo queue? Because I need to move that back over to the 400 queue, because that's actually a job for the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then it's your operator making those decisions as opposed to, asking your customers to differentiate.
Right, exactly.
I had a question here really quick that I'll throw. I think I'm going to give this to Tim really fast, because I think this might touch on what he's going to show us in a bit here. But so Artisan's Attic mentions that they're having trouble importing jigs or JPEGs, with the cut line and the engraving line showing. Everything comes through as black rather than a red for cutting and a black for engraving. I assume this is importing into Ruby and not probably printing into.
Right. So if you're importing a JPEG into Ruby, Ruby will automatically convert it to a black and white image. So unless the file itself is a PDF or an AI file or any other file work that's not a JPEG, then it'll show the cut lines. But since if there is a red outline in the JPEG and you import the JPEG as an image, it's not going to see the cut line. It's just going to make it black.
It's going to raster the whole image, basically.
Exactly.
And also, JPEGs will never hold the information for cutting, like ever. You think you have a red line and it's the right thickness, but it's literally just a JPEG. It's a bunch of dots. It's never, and we need the geometry of vector lines in order to do that. So I know that she's using, she's an expert with Photoshop. So quite often Photoshop people are saving everything as raster images like JPEGs and bitmaps. And what I would suggest is getting a vector art program like Adobe Illustrator, CorelDRAW, Inkscape. If you want to use, if you just want simple cut lines, just use Inkscape. It's free and you can do some stuff with it. I don't like it that much, but hey, for the price, Inkscape's great.
The headlines of the papers tomorrow. James doesn't like Inkscape. One thing I would mention really quick too is, as Jim sort of mentioned there, or was showing, in Ruby, if it's not a really complex object, you could draw the cut line right in Ruby if you chose. Yeah. So you could use the design feature right in Ruby to just draw a basic cut line around an object, and you'd be good to go. Now, if it's a complicated, shape, then you probably do want to use a vector program to add that in if possible.
Yeah, we don't have a freehand drawing tool in Ruby yet. I say yet because the roadmap on this thing is crazy.
Yes, I can show that too if we like, but there's some cool stuff coming. We also don't have multi-line text for some reason. I know that one's also on the list, but I
don't know what the big deal of multi-line text is, but I mean,
I'm with you, but there are very senior men at this company who, Mike Clark in particular, who's really dead set on that being in there. Quick question for you, James, from Doug. Absolutely, yeah. Do the remote and the headless computer show the same items in the queue?
Yes.
Yes.
So
Okay.
yes. So if you were to if I were to take my camera drone and fly it down to my computer in the van right now, we could actually have a little look and see. But you'll see the queue load up when I place things in my remote window.
Yes.
So this is great because the designers will be loading the queue up. The designers cannot push play for safety reasons, but which is, if your computer's right beside your other laser, you kind of wish you could just press play. But unfortunately, this I get why it can't. So I'm not all mad about it.
Yeah. But just to clarify though too, so even though you're hooking into your van computer from the local computer in your studio,
Mm-hmm.
the computer in your studio and the computer in your van don't have identical queues. They still have their own queues.
Yeah, they still have their own queue. Like if I I stopped sharing. Hi, share. Come here. There we go. I thought I wasn't sharing.
Come here.
Come here. Are we doing it? Yes, we are. So if you'll see, here's the queue here. It only has one thing. Here's the queue here. It has three things. They're all different. So
Right.
completely different queues. My local computer and van computer.
I think Doug, I'm sure, I mean, if you give us a shout, I'm sure we'd be able to help you sort that out.
Oh,
I think there's very likely to be a simple workaround that we can get for you. But just really quickly to touch off too on Lisa or Liza, forgive me if I've got that mispronounced, but
Lisa.
Affinity, Lisa, thank you. Affinity is also another inexpensive option. That is another good one to shout out.
Yes.
Inkscape, certainly. Affinity. If you're using Linux, there's GIMP and things like this. So there are a lot of programs out there that'll help you get just a simple cut line if you need one. But thank you for mentioning that. That's a good point. Going back to Tim really quickly. I have a question here about, where did it go? This one. One other quick one, really quick, from Artisans about is there a good tutorial for using the rotary attachment for engraving on a glass mug, or maybe even if you have any tips for just engraving on glass in general, because I know it's a bit of a different beast than some of the other.
Oh my god.
The thing about glass is that if you get the settings right, it's easy, and you don't need to add goo juice or floppy papers or sticky tacky or stuff. If you get your settings right, you can engrave glass without chips, without any blank spots in the engraving. You just got to get your settings right, and so that just means finding what your laser with your lens does to glass, and you got to spend the time. I would suggest blocking out an hour one Friday afternoon when nobody's calling, and go just do your tests with the 16 colors and get your settings just right, because people are like, oh, what do I put on glass to make it good? And I'm like, well, if you're using a Trotec laser, you shouldn't need to put anything on the glass. You should just be able to engrave it. But that being said, people don't have time. They just want to put as much power into the glass as possible and just blast it. Yeah, then you're gonna need all sorts of stuff to cool the glass down. And my favorite for that is transfer mask. So, Tim, you got anything?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the best resource for any tips on engraving, cutting, any material, our YouTube channel has a ton of information, ton of videos on there. That's
Agreed.
how I trained myself on doing like half the applications that I do now, especially with glass, because glass is, well, to put it in other words, glass is very dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
It's very dangerous material. When you're engraving glass, you really have to be careful, because you're not really more or less engraving. You're sort of shattering glass when you're working with it. So once again, finding the right settings for glass is extremely important. Very, very important.
Sorry, James, you had.
No, I wasn't saying anything. I just had my mouth open.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Just trying to breathe.
Breathe. Not on my stream. So Artisans mentions, and I think this is a good question here from 833. Jumping off on the rotary question, any step-by-step videos or in-depth videos to use the rotary with Ruby. Trotec Ruby. Struggling and keep going back to job controls. So I think if this is something that is worth, we have briefly touched on the rotary in Ruby or Ruby in a couple of our videos, but we've never done sort of a dedicated video about it. Tim, I don't know if you're familiar with using the rotary in Ruby
I
at
have.
all.
No, I've done many trainings about using the rotary in Ruby. It's great. I love it. I think it's, at least from job control, it's a bit different, but it's a good type of different. This is a new and updated way of looking at it. We have a 3D rotary assist tool too, so you could sort of visually see how something's going to engrave on your cylindrical object, which also looks kind of cool. So there's also, I believe, it may have been covered in a stream before as well.
I think we kind of touched on it, but sorry to interrupt you. I was just going to ask, is that something that we can show even if you don't have a rotary in the machine you're connected to right now?
Yeah.
I've got it on my screen here.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna pull it up here. Maybe you guys can talk through. James, are you able to make that left window? Yeah.
Go away.
That's the one. Okay. So just I'm gonna make this the whole screen. So can you guys sort of talk us through what we're seeing?
Tim?
Oh, of course. So this is the 3D rotary assist. So it, by all means, it doesn't show exactly what your cylindrical object looks like, but it helps you visualize what it will look like on the actual surface. So one tough thing to actually visualize for a rotary is because since we're at this point, we're not working with a 3D object, we're working with a 2D wraparound of an object. So this 3D rotary tool helps us visualize how something might actually curve onto the surface itself. So in this 3D rotary window as well, you can control the dimensions of the cylinder that you're facing. So if you do click on the adjust button at the top left of that window, what you can do is you can adjust the from X and to X. And what that adjusts essentially is the actual size and dimension of the cylindrical object. So the best way to test exactly what size your cylinder is, you can take the head of the laser and move it to one end of your object, then move it to the other end. And that way, in Ruby, it will actually write down the X dimensions and just input those with the sliders. And you have this sort of approximation of what your object will look like. So it's a really great tool to see how something might look like. You could always use your laser head to have a more accurate put on to the cylinder as well. But this tool here is very, very extremely handy just because it helps people visualize how something will look like.
Good. I mean, that's the long and the short of it anyway. I mean, the red line, Tim, a lot of my customers are complaining that, you know, they're used to snapping something right on the red line, and then it engraves the first half, and then it spins around and then engraves the other half.
Right.
What do you do to combat this, to get things perfectly centered above a logo on a like, say, a Yeti mug?
Oh, right. Okay, so typically for me, I actually haven't had too many issues with the red line separating. But the best way to go about it is just to simply offset it, just like you have down on your screen. There, just move it a bit away from the red line. The red line is just their center axis.
Right.
Essentially, it's what the mug is going to be rotating on. So it's not.
It's the split, right? Like
exactly. Yeah.
You think of the red line as the edges of your engraving, and that these edges up here are not the edges. They wrap around, much like a atlas would wrap around from Alaska to Russia.
Yeah.
You know, this is how that happens. And so, you know, we can drag these things up, and you'll see that on the mug preview, they're congruent, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, to get a match on a Yeti mug, and this is a huge reason why some people are buying rotaries. How do you normally do that?
So firstly, I would ensure that the mug itself is placed incorrectly. Just because with a rotary especially, since everything's being seen as one flat image rather than a full rounded object, sometimes getting the exact diameter and the correct diameter is really the most important step here. Just because on a Yeti mug, if something even skews off a bit, you'll see it in the powder coating. It will come off a bit. And it's also important to take in the powder coating on the Yeti mug as well, just because sometimes powder coating might be a bit uneven. So you have to sit in with the correct diameter. You have to make sure everything's put into place correctly, and that everything's rotating correctly as well. That is extremely important.
I just want to jump in there and say I 100% second that. I've made that mistake where I actually just put in something technically doesn't look upside down in your mind, but just being sure that you understand which axis Ruby is, or even if you're using job control, which axis it's understanding the cup to be in, so that you're not engraving something upside down on the outside of your Yeti mug, your very expensive Yeti mug. Also, potentially to Tim's point, some of the Yeti mugs aren't perfectly straight up and down. Most of them do taper as they get down to the bottom of the mug, right? So being sure that you have the diameter for where you want to engrave as well, and not just
the center of it, really.
Exactly, yeah.
The center of your
the widest, where you're gonna place your. I don't mean to. Just one quick question there, James. Really quick, when you were offsetting the graphic there for a second, it went above the edge of the board. So. Yes, but in the preview there, it still showed the entire design. So that will still engrave the entire image just wrapped around onto the bottom. You just can't see it in the.
Let's take a look here, and you see.
Oh, you can. It's just
giving us. I can't edit that, but it's showing us that it is wrapping around. As I said, this red line is the seam of your engraving.
It's like a piece of paper that you're wrapping around a bottle.
Yes.
Or the
So if you were wrapping this piece of paper around, this would be the split, not these.
Yes.
These are not the split, and once you can wrap your hand around that part, you're gonna get along just fine with Mr. Ruby Rotary.
So you were saying, Tim, you would measure the sort of the principle, the diameter, and making sure that you have the kind of the setup of your object in the rotary first and foremost, and then
I think that's the most important thing. Just because the laser machine does not see an object that is cylindrical as a cylindrical object, it sees it as a flat sheet. So it's very, very important to make sure that everything within the rotary itself is very steady, very level. Even if there is a slight slant in your object, we do have a little adjustment on the rotary tool. You could just slightly adjust the object to make sure that everything's nice and straight. And that's, I think, the most important thing, aside from actually getting everything set up in Ruby, is having the physical setup done correctly as well. When we do have videos on YouTube about that too.
Maybe this is something worth coming back to in another stream. I appreciate the questions here.
I think so.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of people are having questions about the
rotary in particular.
Rotary,
And I will say, just again, for anybody who wasn't here earlier in the stream, and not to repeat myself, but the reason that the rotary got added much earlier on the roadmap than it was meant to is because we had people requesting it. And so if there's anything you see in Ruby that you wish was there, send in a request, and there's a very good chance it'll get bumped up and implemented sooner rather than later. I love this man that you've created. So a question from Guylaine, and I assume Guylaine is using Ruby, I think. Guylaine, merci pour avoir regardé le stream. Comment attribuer un paramètre à une couleur en particulier? So, si vous utilisez Ruby, I could throw it to Tim, but the question for anyone else watching is basically how to attribute, a particular setting to a certain color.
I was just reading. Hopefully it's in Ruby, and I don't know if you want to take this, Tim, but I do have a little, I don't know if you call it a workaround or if this is the way it's meant to be done, but you want to get this, Tim, or do you want me to try?
You can try. I can definitely chime in if you need.
Sure, yeah. Okay, so a particular setting in Ruby, if you want 16 colors and they all need to engrave in Ruby, and I do this quite a bit because I sell lasers, so I need to test your material to make sure it's going to work. I go into my material database, and I'm going to create a new material by going to the totem pole here and hitting new material and edit that and call it S material. Okay. Now, if I want to add more colors, how do you do that? Right? There's no way to just say add a new thing. You go in here. No, it doesn't work. It's under effects. Okay. Some people don't see this right away. If you click on effects, and now you see, okay, well, I want to engrave in detail each of these things. So I'm going to, hey, wait a minute. Why can't I add more engraved detail? Now, I don't know if this is something that they want to change, or if they've meant to do it this way. I've had some talks with some of the the engineers and the leads on this. But what I normally do is I will create new effects for testing, and I will create one called I'll just name them numbers. So I'll use you have to use at least 2 digits. So I'll go 11, 22, 33, and so on and so on. And so you'll see I have many different these are just numbers, and all these names here are just names. Like I could have the word money here, and just because I add money to here doesn't mean money is going to come pouring into my wallet.
That's what I'm doing wrong.
Exactly. Yeah.
Gold here, it doesn't mean that gold is going to come out of my laser.
Oh,
These
no.
are just names. Because my name's James, it doesn't mean that I'm some famous James. I'm just James. I'm just a regular dude. Same with these things. These are just monikers. You don't have to, like, just because it says engraved detail, this is true on the factory settings. These are true on the factory settings. You know what you need, but not when you're creating settings. So when you're creating settings, I just make named settings. This is the way I do it. Maybe it's not the right way, but now I can add 11, 22, 33, 4, 44, and I can create colors for each of them. Is this what you do, Tim?
That's exactly what I do. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah. The note about the names is also very important, because the names themselves don't actually define anything unless you change the actual setting.
Yeah.
So the way I like to think of materials is just this massive umbrella term for what a material is, because under a material there is a process, and then underneath those processes, which are cutting or engraving or masking, there are different settings as well. So every single process carries its own setting and its own parameter, but they themselves do not mean that setting name. So just because something is named one way does not mean it will do that one thing. Everything is subjective to your own needs.
Right.
They're suggestions more than anything. Then they're sort of like, here is a parameter you may want to create that might be useful, but
yeah,
I see. Because I missed that, to be honest. When I first started using Ruby, I thought they were just like magic. Well, you want this to be darker? Just add engraved darker.
Yeah. And that's the point of this. That's the point of it, is that you could one cool material I like is a white trolleys. And white trolleys, you can make it go gray, you can make it go brown, you can make it go black, you can just engrave the white, so that there would be effects. Or let's say on a Lumamark, you can make it go black, you can make it go gray, you can make it go white, you can burn right through it and make it just go shiny gold, or silver, depending on the color. And so there is reasons to create effects. There definitely is reasons, but though you will name those yourself. Somebody has gone in and named these, and so don't think that engraved dark is just going to work for every material. It's not going to just suddenly magically engrave dark things. And that's one big thing I've been wanting to tell the entire world about Ruby, is that these are just names. At least for now, they're just names. But I love the idea of the effects list, so that you can go, oh, I've opened up maple, and oh, I can engrave dark, I can engrave detail, I can do a burning cut engrave, I can do a burning raster engrave. You know, there's all these things you can do with the effects. It's just that you got to set them up.
Yeah.
Unless it's a factory setting and they're already set up.
Oh yeah, and a quick note: when you do add a new effect, by default, it will default to 0 power and 100 speed. So make sure you change the power. Make sure you set an actual number to it, or else you'll be running with a no power run.
Yes, yes. You have to set. You have to, and then also one thing I forgot to mention is when you hit add effects, you enter a name. You can choose between mask, cut, or engrave. So you can change that to a cut, and so you'll see the icons for engraving, where there's a little block and it's sort of half deep, or a cut where the beam is cut right through, and that way you can add cuts or engraves, and you'll see here.
Can I ask really quickly? So I have one last question. I was hoping to maybe have Tim show us something that I think sort
right,
of speaks to it, but in the feature that you were talking, you can set it to mask, cut, or engrave. What would a mask imply? Just because I feel like it's a slightly different terminology than is like cut or engrave. Obviously, are the standard, straightforward. But if you're using mask, what would that sort of imply that the setting was gonna do?
Who are you asking?
Oh, yeah.
Me?
The world. Just existential. It's rhetorical.
Go ahead, Tim.
So a masking would imply a very low power, quick run, just to quickly show of where you're trying to do a job.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's like a placement, or is it like a kiss cut?
Almost like a kiss cut.
Gotcha. Okay.
You'll see here that there's no parameters for mask. So I'm going to save this here. So there's no parameters on mask. So you can't alter anything because, and we're using purple there. Let's produce a square here and fill it in, and then let's produce a circle, and then let's make that purple and fill it in. So now when we create that job, bring it up somewhere here, we're going to change that. Oh, another great thing that I want to show everyone who's not using this yet. Save changes, yes. I go into my material database, so my test materials here. Get in the habit, if you're using lots of materials, different materials all the time, you go into the materials, and if you hit favorite here, it's now a favorite material. Go back to your prepare screen. Now, every time you go into this materials here and change it, it's going to be right up top. So if you are going to be working with glass all day, find your glass setting, favorite that glass setting, and now every time you click there, it's going to be right on top, and you don't have to go searching for it. So now you see what mask did is it mashed away a portion of the background. So it literally, it's like putting masking tape down and engraving over, or tinfoil and engraving over everything, and that where the tinfoil was, it's not going to engrave. So that's what mask does, is you can place masking over it. So you see this white circle is no longer purple, because what it has done is it's taken purple and it's created a mask over top of that. So you can, where that works great is if you have a background image like a JPEG or something that you're engraving, and you want to mask over hello world with so that it's showing the material in the background. You would use mask setting and then place it over top of that, and then that's how the mask works.
A bit like a cutting mask, sort of in in Photoshop or in Illustrator. Mm-hmm. That's really cool.
I mean, we used to do that in the old days, where we would place some kind of a metal piece over top of the engraving to kind of get the effect, kind of like dodging and burning if you're a photo producer. So we used to place a metal piece over top as a mask, so it would reflect the light and wouldn't engrave. So this is just a way to do it without going old school.
This last piece that I wanted to throw to here really fast. Let me see if I have. Here it is. So it was a question I have here earlier that asks about a particular feature in Ruby. There it is. So the mill merge. So this is something that, to my knowledge, is not yet implemented. I don't think.
Not yet.
Will certainly come in the future. But
I mean, if you look at all the images of Ruby, the teaser trailers all have the fields in the tags. So you know for a fact this is something that is coming. So it's definitely on the roadmap. When it's coming out, I can't tell you.
I'll maybe pull up the roadmap here really quickly. But what I was going to ask about too is if you think you have enough time to really quickly show us just a basic rundown of the array function. I'm not sure if you feel
right.
Because we have kind of like maybe 5, maybe 10 minutes at most. But
Well, just like everything in Ruby, it's quick and easy. So I'm just gonna
Good.
get
Good
my
at this.
screen up here.
Do I need to stop sharing?
Here, I can pull James's out of there, and I can.
Oh,
Oops,
thanks.
I don't want to pull actual James out of there.
Ah!
All right.
Comedy.
So this is Ruby now on my screen, and I'm currently in the preparing tab of Ruby, which means I get to see the entire laser bed, and I get to see all of my designs and jobs that I've made in the past. So for the array function to work, you're going to need to select the design tab, which is just right up here. By default, when you go into the preparing tab, it's going to show only the jobs tab, but you can just quickly press on designs and it's going to open everything up. You're just going to scroll down to what you want to find, and I was working with a Superman logo here, just right here. So to work with the array function, all you really need to do is to go into the design tab, find the design that you saved previously, find the arrow right here, and you're going to double click on it. When you double click on it, you are given this graph, these options, so you could put in as many of that design as you need. So I will work around and I will put 6 by 6 of my Superman logos. And then right below that, we have these 3 graphs, these 3 lines over here. You see the 3 scroll bar options. So the first one is to adjust the X, the second one, the Y, and the third one to adjust any offset between the rows. So if I play around with this, you can see that I'm spacing them out. They're all being spaced out evenly. I can also choose if I want to space it out using the left side of the design or the middle of the design. I personally like using the middle just because it's a bit more accurate, for me at least.
Especially for doing jigs.
Exactly, yeah.
Producing jigs, yeah.
Yeah, and then so the second scroll bar is to adjust the Y. So you could space that out. And then the next one over, this one's a bit difficult to explain, but showing it is much better. It offsets the logos. So if I wanted to sort of make this as compact as possible and use as much material, use as little material as possible, I could adjust an offset, and then I could take these and sort of just scrunch them all up a bit. And now I have a much more compact design. So look at that, all being scrunched up. I've actually gone into the negative Y offsets here, which means I've saved space by doing this as well. And then I could take the X and just scrunch them up a bit more. And then I'll just press on the add button on the right, on the bottom right here. And now I have all of my designs put into here. I have 36 Superman logos instead of just 1. And the best thing about this is, since people would usually do this in Illustrator or Corel, they would manually have to put in 36 and put them all scrunched up together. In Ruby, there's no need for that. You just make one design, throw it into Ruby, and then you throw it into the array function, and you have this all made up. So you have all your time saved. You don't have to go back and forth between your software and Ruby. You just do it all within Ruby.
Yeah, this actually makes Adobe Illustrator. If people who know me know I'm not an Adobe Illustrator fan, although I'm taking classes for it. I'm taking medication for it. But this actually makes Adobe Illustrator like a viable, useful software for laser laser engraving. Because what I didn't like, we don't say the H word here. What I didn't like about Adobe Illustrator before is that its layout functionality was not superior to CorelDRAW. Its graphics production capability is superior to CorelDRAW. I know this now, but even though I have been taking medication for Adobe Illustrator, I have upped my dose, and literally the layout is not as good. Like CorelDRAW definitely has way better layout functionality, but Ruby's sort of leveling the playing field. Now I will always be Corel number one. I use Corel as though I'm just breathing. It's not even a challenge anymore. This is why I am taking medication for Adobe Illustrator, because I do like challenges. But the more I learn, the more I see that let's create one object in Adobe Illustrator and let's copy them and edit them in Ruby for engraving. So this sort of takes that design step and makes Adobe a useful program for laser engraving.
I will fully admit, as an Adobe fan, that you're absolutely correct. I would agree with that. I learned Adobe first, so I'm still learning Corel now. I think though we even showed it in a previous stream, like Miguel and I, we would use a plugin in Adobe for nesting because it's just the layout of stuff in Adobe is just not the same as in Corel. I would totally agree with that. But what I love about what Tim showed here, and I think we definitely had some nice comments about it, Tim, too, that I feel like we haven't showed this enough, but it is a really cool function because it's not necessarily perfect nesting, but nesting is one of those things that is so instrumental to profitability and making sure that you're not wasting any material, particularly, if a customer's paying for it, or even, if you're paying for it, you want to get as much as you can out of a little. So, hopefully this function, especially if you're repeating a particular job, allows you to kind of really, tighten up that grid and get things, looking exactly how you want them and as quick and as easily as you want them. We're kind of hitting the end of time here. I have a few other quick questions. Maybe we could do kind of a rapid fire round, and then just so for everyone who might still be watching, before you step away, hopefully, to let you know. So based on the comments here, I will absolutely start working with Tim on doing maybe a Ruby rotary stream. We'll see if maybe, if James is available. Oh, apparently not.
Nope.
we can get that done.
Good timing.
If not, yeah, exactly. If not for next week, the dose of Illustrator ran out. If not for next week, then certainly for in a couple weeks from now. But I'll try and get it as soon as we can. Obviously, that sounds like it's highly requested, and it seems like a good idea. So, I think really quickly, let's do a lightning round if we can. So, I will throw this one first over to Tim. Might have missed it, but can I import all my materials that I made in Job Control into Ruby?
Yes, 100%. So the best and quickest way. So firstly, you'll go into Job Control, you'll export all the materials, and you'll get it in a little file. Then within Ruby, you're going to go up to the hamburger menu. You're going to click on that. You're going to go down to materials. We're going to save our changes here. Then you're going to go to these three dots up here. You're going to click on that and import from file. And then you're going to select the file that Job Control had exported, and then all the materials you've had in Job Control, they are now magically in Ruby.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Is there another way too, though?
Yeah.
I think there is. Let's just share my screen. I haven't tested this, but I think there is, and you, Tim, you can tell me. Hello. There, you see me now. Okay. Going into the Ruby button here.
I can see your calendar there, James. You might just want to quickly.
My calendar.
There we go. Yeah.
Oh.
No, you're good now. You're good.
Thanks. Okay. Thank you for that. We won't want to share my super secret calendar. Import configuration from Job Control. Does that do the same thing?
So that is mostly for machines that need Job Control to be able to activate and run Ruby right off the get-go. So this is mostly taking all the configurations you've had within Job Control, which is all the backend files, all of that, and putting it into Ruby to work. So in one way, it will get that working. There's also another way of importing materials, and that is through exactly the same place that I went through before. But instead of hitting from file, you can import from cloud. That will import materials that we have stored in our cloud. It's not specifically your materials that you have saved or imported, but it's all the materials that we've made for specific materials and our specific material covers.
So it's like re-importing the material database a little bit.
Exactly.
I appreciate it. Okay, last one really quick. I'm going to throw to James as the Corel man about town. When I save from Corel, is there a way that I can have it autosave into a folder that Ruby sees? So you mean autosave into a folder that is like automatically imported into Ruby, I think. Yeah.
I haven't found that yet.
So far as I know, I don't think so.
I don't know, because what might happen is when we come into here and we import a file into Job Control, it may convert it immediately. I don't think it finds them. So I think you have to drag. One could create a macro, a screen macro. Do it. So yeah, I prefer mini mouse macro. It's freeware, and it works great for all my macro stuff. So you can create a macro that you can hit, Control Alt Shift F6 or something, and suddenly it goes file, save, open, slide. It'll do all the mouse function for you. I create macros for things all the time for automation. So you could do that, but I don't think there's a hot folder like in job control.
Not yet, at least.
Not yet.
You could always
But
throw
job control didn't have that functionality either. I'm thinking the hot folder that you would save a job control file in. So yeah, I think it converts the job to a PJL file or whatever these are called. So no, the short answer.
Sorry, I was literally sending a quick text to Miguel because I thought, A, just to keep him on his toes, but then also B, I said they mentioned, I thought Miguel maybe said something about it a week or two ago. So I said okay, let me just put him on the spot.
Yeah, I mean, I'll look into it, and next time we're on, I'll give you my findings.
Exactly. Worst case, it'll always come back. And I know, Doug, you are so great to always be back for these streams.
Absolutely.
So I know we'll be able to get back to you if not today. So really, really quickly, I will just sort of say thank you again for everybody for joining us this week. This was a lot of fun. I hope we give you some really cool new tips in Ruby. As I was saying before, I think either next week or in 2 weeks, we will really endeavor to get a stream that is sort of Ruby and Rotary focused on for you. Keep an eye out on our emails. If you're not subscribed yet, definitely subscribe. We got a lot of good everyong from Rubly. We got a lot of really great stuff coming out there and more new stuff coming soon. So I think it's going to be really, really exciting. But yeah, a huge thank you to everyone who's watching either now or in the future on YouTube. If you have any further questions, you just toss them in those YouTube comments. We will always do our best to get back to you guys. Thank you to Tim and James, of course, for joining me today. As always, you guys are the very best. Take care, everyone, and we will see you again next week.